All right, so YNAB just did a big update to their goals, and in this video, I want to show you what those changes are, how to use these new goal types, and why you should be using YNAB goals in the first place. I'm also going to go over my new updated YNAB goals decision tree that's going to help you know exactly which goal type to choose for each different category. But with all that being said, let's just jump in. So why should we use goals in the first place? Well, there's two main reasons. And the first reason is because it makes YNAB do what a lot of people are very frustrated that they think YNAB doesn't do, which is that it helps you plan. So as you know, when you get paid, you have your transaction come through, here's my employer and 2,500 and save. And so now I have money up here and to be budgeted, and I can take these dollars and budget them down to my categories. But I can't budget more than $2,500 because I don't have more than that available in my account. And so that's very frustrating because how do you actually plan ahead for expenses if you don't have the money available? Well, that's where goals come into play. You can see with my setup, I'm using the toolkit, of course, so I have this goal column turned on, and I also have these colors turned blue for when I haven't fully met a goal. You can see that I have goals set for everything. And what this allows me to do is it helps me plan for the future by knowing what my total goals will be. So if I go forward into July, into a month where I haven't budgeted anything at all into the budgeted column, I can look right down here and to the right-hand side and look at underfunded. And the underfunded means that this is the total amount of all of my goals that I haven't fully funded. And because we're in July, where I haven't budgeted anything yet, I know that that is the total of all of my goals. Now, I also have the toolkit showing me my total goals right here, which is display total monthly goals right here on the budget screen there. And so I know that my total monthly goals for all my categories, what I'm planning to spend, because that's all a goal is, it's just your game plan, is $4,913.63. So if my income is not at least that much, I know that I have a problem because I'm then planning to spend more than I can make. And so goals, first and foremost, help you actually make a game plan for what you want to do with your money. And then as you get paid, as money comes in, like I showed a second ago, you can allocate that money down to your categories based on the goals that you've set, which is where the second reason that we set goals for everything comes into play. Now, YNAB calls this creating a budget template. So if you hear them use that word, what they basically mean is just setting goals for all your categories so that you don't have to, budget down to every little thing just based on, manually typing it in, right? What goals allow us to do is they say once we get paid, we can then go and just grab whole groups at a time and be able to quickly budget for them. So I can grab this whole debt repayment group and then click underfunded and boom, now I have just moved enough money from here down to here based on those goals. So I can grab whole areas at a time and just boom, fully fund that. Maybe I want to fully fund a few of these and I don't quite have enough to do that, so I'll do that. And then maybe I'll throw the rest of this into groceries. And then when I get my next paycheck in the 1st of July, I would go ahead and budget out the rest of July's expenses based on the goals. And so you're able to budget very quickly and save yourself a ton of time. So that's the other big reason that I'm very, very adamant that we set goals for everything. Okay, so let's talk about these new goals. So as you know, YNAB has released some new goals and they've got a few handy articles that will explain how the old goals correlate with the new ones, and then also about this new weekly goal thing that we're going to talk about here in a second. So I'll link these articles down in the description below if you want to check those out. But as far as navigating to them, you can basically just click any of your categories, come over here, click Edit Goal if you've already got something set, and then click right here where it says Needed for Spending, and you'll see the three options. You've got Needed for Spending, Target Savings Balance, and Monthly Savings Builder. So let's go through each of these one after another and kind of explain how they're utilized. So let's start with this Monthly Savings Builder, which I use a lot of the times for Nick spending. Now, the Monthly Savings Builder is basically exactly the same as the older monthly contribution goal. This is going to be used when you want to contribute the exact same amount of money every single month, no matter what, to a category. That means whether you spend all the money in the category or none of the money and it just sits there, you're still going to budget that full same amount next month. Personally, I use the monthly savings builder for things like Nick and Hannah spending, because if I don't use all of my individual spending money, I want it to build up over time. I don't want to lose it. We also use it for things like auto maintenance and home maintenance and medical bills. This is sort of our sinking funds, right? Of categories that we don't know exactly when they're going to happen, but we just want to build it up over time and set aside the exact same amount of money, whether or not we actually use it for that month. So that's the monthly savings builder. Next, let's talk about the target savings balance goal. Now, this is a really good option for when you need a large lump sum of money all at one time by a specific date. So let's say that you want to save up to buy a brand new car in cash. Come over, create a goal, and we're going to select target savings balance, and we're going to keep this by date selected. So let's say we'd like to buy a $10,000 car. And let's say that we would like to buy that in January of 2022. So we've got basically a year and a half to save up that amount of money to be able to buy that car. And so this is now going to tell us we need to budget $500 more this month to stay on track towards our goal. This target savings balance is basically the exact same as target balance by date in the old YNAB sort of goal setup. And keep in mind, this goal as compared to the old by date goal, which we're going to get to here in a second, is really focused on needing all of the money at one time. So this won't be a good option for things like a vacation where you want to spend a total amount of money on a trip, but you may have to buy plane tickets or rental, or an Airbnb months in advance when you're booking the trip. This is you need a large, specific amount of money on a very specific date. And really, it's also best used for one-time purchases. Again, as I'm going to show you here in a second with the new goal types they've added, we actually used to use this target balance by date, which is now target savings balance. We used to use that for things like annual recurring bills. So your Amazon Prime or even your YNAB subscription, right? Things that were a specific bill on a specific date. But that has now changed, and we're using a different goal type to do that. Okay, so with that being said, let's move on and talk about these new goal types that YNAB has added. I'm going to go ahead and delete that there. So let's scroll up here to our car insurance by November. So let's say that we pay car insurance once a year in November. So what we're going to do here is select edit the goal, and you're going to notice that I'm going to choose needed for spending, right? That's this top one here. And I'm going to start with this by date option. So let's say that my total car insurance bill is $1,200 once a year. So I'm going to say by date, and then I'm going to select the date. This is also a brand new change. Used to, you had to just basically select November, and now you can actually choose a very specific date. Let's say it's due on, the 18th of November. And then YNAB will prompt me to save, enough money every month to make sure I've done $1,200 by this date. But here's the really cool new feature they've added. They've added this little repeat block right down here. So now, rather than having to reset this goal in November when the payment actually happens, all I need to do is just tell YNAB that I want this to repeat every year and stay that amount right there. And then now, when November actually comes and this payment happens, I don't even have to reset that goal to November 2021. YNAB will know in December that it automatically needs to reset, and I'll start building up another $1,200 for next year's bill. So for all your new reoccurring bills, they can now use this new needed for spending by date with the repeat. Now, the last thing I'll say about this by date goal is it is the one that you want to use for things like vacations or Christmas spending, right? So this is similar to the by date goal that YNAB introduced last October. So if we use $4,000 by October 2021, what that will do is it will allow us to actually spend from this category to buy things like airfare so that we can actually get to Ireland or anything else that we need for the trip long before that trip happens, and still only track the fact that we've allocated $4,000 to it, because it just knows as long as we're doing $4,000 by that date, we're good to go, and it will allow us to spend from that category leading up to it. So now let's talk about the needed for spending monthly goal type. So let's come up here, choose gas, we'll say needed for spending, and we're going to choose monthly. So let's say we want to do $100 per month, and now we can actually change the exact day of the month that we want to make sure we have that $100 set aside by. So if you're familiar with the monthly goal type that YNAB introduced last October, this works the exact same way. instead of saying monthly up here, it's just buried right here under needed for spending monthly. And the way that this differs from the monthly savings builder is that we're going to allocate $100 every month to the gas category. And then if we have any money left over at the end of the month, YNAB will actually count that leftover money towards next month's goal, which is extremely helpful for a lot of our spending categories. Let me show you what that looks like. So here we are in May, and I've got this gas goal, and I'm going to set this goal for $100 needed for spending monthly. All right. Now, let's say that I don't even fully fund this goal back in May, but I do end the month with $50 available, right? I didn't spend anything, so I've ended the month of May with $50 available. So now, as I go into June, you'll notice that YNAB is actually only prompting me that my goal target is $50. So as long as I budget $50, YNAB is going to turn this green and say that I'm good to go. So what happened here, and you can see because of the toolkit that my column changed, and now it says I only need 50 right here. Now, one quick note about this goal, because I know I can already see those gears turning in your head, because you might be going, okay, well, wait, hold up, because I've got $45 still sitting here, but then if I go into July, YNAB is prompting me and says I need to budget the full $100. Why is it not applying the $45 from June to July's goal? And the answer to that question is that YNAB will not apply leftover money to next month's goal until it's actually the next month in real life. So I'm filming this video today on June 23rd, 2020, and YNAB will not apply any leftover money until it's actually July 1st in real life in your time zone. So just keep that in mind, that the monthly spending type goal will apply the leftover money to next month's goal, but it's not going to happen until it's actually the first of the month in real life. All right, so now it's time to talk about this last brand new goal type that I know a lot of people are excited about, called the weekly goal. And just hang tight here in a second. I'm going to be showing you this goals decision tree, but let me talk about this new goal type first. So let's take groceries, for example. Rather than doing a full monthly expense of $800 a month, I'm going to go to weekly, and I'm going to say I want to do $200 a week. That's what I want to focus on. And then you can actually select the day of the week that you want to choose. I'm going to personally choose Sunday. When I hit save, YNAB is basically going to prompt me to make sure that I have budgeted enough each week to take care of it. And as you notice, it actually adds these little bitty dots over here on this bar so that I can see my progress as I go. So when I do the first 200, now boom, I'm 25% of the way there. Then when I do the next 200, now I'm halfway there. Then I'll do the next 200, and I'm 75% of the way there. Now, let me pause here and show you something. Because YNAB is still largely based on a month-to-month situation, they still very much so encourage you to try and get a full month ahead. That's sort of the underlying philosophy. YNAB wants you to push to age your money. And so as part of that, they're still only going to leave this category yellow or blue if you're using the toolkit until you have fully funded it enough for the entire month, which in this case is $800, 200 times 4. So if I turn my toolkit off really quick, you'll see that even though we're about 3 weeks into the month and I've funded it for 3 weeks worth, it still turned this yellow. Even if I did another 700, it's still going to keep this yellow all the way up until I've budgeted the full 800 to finish out the total month. Just recognize that, long-term, YNAB is still very much so encouraging you to try and break that paycheck to paycheck cycle. Try not to get too discouraged though if it takes you a while. I know it took me and Hannah 6 or 7 months to get 1 month ahead in YNAB, and that was like really focused, disciplined effort to be very frugal. Now, the last thing I want to show you with the weekly goals before I do the flow chart is a couple of other ways that I've thought about using this, and I'm sure you might even find some cool ways too. So if you do, be sure to leave a comment down below. Haircuts are kind of interesting, and there's never been a really great way to do a goal for things like haircuts in YNAB because they're not quite monthly for a lot of people, but they're also not quite bi-monthly. I know for me, for example, Hannah and I, we get our hair cut about every 6 weeks, which is about a month and a half. And so what's been cool is now I can say, okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do $6 a week. And if I go and use this about every 6 weeks, then now that's going to be nice because 6 times 6 for me is 36, which is enough money for me to go get my hair cut based on where I typically go. And so if I just do $6 a week, I know I'm going to be good to go. Okay, so with all that being said, let's look at the flow chart. Now, I've set up my flow chart a little bit different than the way that YNAB sets them out, right? YNAB breaks these up based on sort of those 3 high-level groupings. I kind of took a different approach, mostly because I think if you understand this, like rock and roll, you're going to be great. But if you are having any trouble with this at all, here's maybe one other way to think about these goals that might be helpful for you. So the way I've kind of attacked this is starting with this basic question. So I want you to get a specific category in your mind. Let's take groceries, for example. And you want to say, okay, do you spend from this category every month? Or are you saving for a future expense? Well, if we're thinking about groceries, we're going to use that every month. So now let's ask, should leftovers count towards next month's goal? Meaning, if you have anything left over, do you want it to build up or do you just want it to go towards next month's goal? And if you're like, oh, well, it should just go towards next month's goal. This is groceries. I'm not trying to build up over time. You'll say yes. And then you come down here and you say, okay, do you want to budget by the week or by the month for your groceries? And then that will tell you needed for spending monthly or needed for spending weekly. Okay, let's do one more. So let's do the auto maintenance, right? We talked about that earlier. Do you spend from this category every month? Well, I hope I'm not spending from auto maintenance every month, and hopefully it's a future date. So we'll go this way. Okay, will this repeat or is it a one-time thing? Well, auto maintenance is definitely going to repeat. So let's go this way. Okay, is it irregular or does it repeat on a set interval? Well, auto maintenance is definitely irregular. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it is going to repeat. I just don't know when. So we'll follow irregular and perfect monthly savings builder. So this will help us know like every single month, we're going to put aside a little bit for the auto maintenance. Hopefully this is helpful. You can snag this goals decision tree using the link down in the description below. And like I said, I've also got a few examples for each one based on my recommendation and also a couple of notes. I'll zoom in and show you here. So for the by date, you'll definitely want to use that repeat option for recurring bills. For the monthly spending, this is sort of my default. So I sort of put a note here that said, when in doubt, if you're not sure, I would start with a need for spending monthly. And then, of course, this weekly one, you can use for basically anything that you really want to break up by the week. So like I said, you can grab that decision tree and my other YNAB resources using the link down in the description below. Also, be sure to check out my YNAB video playlist if you have any other questions at all. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.